I'm sure you all must have watched Kaiju anime number 8, and some of you have even followed the manga until the latest chapter. Then, do you know if there are the most powerful kaiju? And these are the 15 strongest kaiju. Number 6, in my opinion, is the most powerful among the kaiju because he is the king of the kaiju. And as you know, that identified kaiju, or also called numbered kaiju, are the strongest group of kaiju in the Kaiju number 8 series. They are super strong kaiju who have power levels reaching more. So because it takes a long time to eradicate them, these kaiju are given identification numbers. And after the kaiju are conquered, their carcasses and core organs will be used as a source of power, precisely to create numbered kaiju weapons. With this weapon, a soldier can gain power equal to the numbered kaiju themselves. However, using this weapon requires synchronization between the kaiju and the user. In fact, due to the heavy burden that must be carried by the user's body, as well as the frequency with which they fight on the battlefield, half of the kaiju weapon users end up dying. So, not just anyone wants and can use it. And in this video, I will introduce and explain the origins, including the story of the kaiju in the anime Kaiju number 8. What they look like, what their powers are, and what their current status is. And not only that, we will also explain about the numbered kaiju weapons and their users. Up to chapter 110, there are already 15 kaiju who are given identification numbers. These numbers correspond to the order in which they appeared in the world of Kaiju number 8. So let's talk about number 1. First, there is Kaiju number 1. He was the first kaiju to get an identification number. And this kaiju has a striking form because on his body there are many eyeballs. And this cross-pupil eyeball is the main weapon of this kaiju. Besides that, Kaiju number 1 is also dubbed the Kaiju of future readers. With the retina of his eyes, he gets super sharp eyesight to be able to see the inside of other creatures' bodies and track their weak points. Not only that, the retina of Kaiju number 1's eyes is also able to see the movement marker signals emitted by its target's brain. That's where Kaiju can predict the movements of other living things before the movement is made. Because of this ability, it can be said that Kaiju number 1 is a very scary numbered kaiju. Because with his predictions, he can release attacks that cannot be avoided. Currently, Kaiju number 1 has been defeated and used as a weapon. The user of Kaiju number 1's weapon is the captain of Division 1, Narumi. At the beginning, Kaiju number 1's weapon was only in the form of an eye retina worn by Narumi. With that weapon, Narumi is able to see the location of the kaiju's core organs. Not only that, he can also read the kaiju's brain signals and predict their movements. With his predictions, Narumi can also unleash attacks that cannot be avoided like Kaiju number 1. But Narumi's prowess isn't just limited to that. After using it for years, Narumi also managed to evolve his Kaiju number 1 weapon. Now, Narumi not only wears the retina of Kaiju number 1's eyes in both eyes, but also throughout his body. By wearing an additional number 1 kaiju weapon in the form of a combat uniform, Narumi managed to develop a new power with his eyes. Thus, Narumi was able to enter a state that awakened another power from his eyes. At that time, the shape and color of his pupils changed, while the output of his kaiju weapon became above normal. It was a state that drastically increased Narumi's physical and mental load, and it was said that this had never happened to any kaiju weapon user. But in this state, Narumi is able to observe electron movements, field temperature fluctuations, and location details through the eyes all over his body. And from that, he is able to create mental visions and predict what is happening around his. So it is in this mode that Narumi is able to predict a movement of even inanimate objects. This is the power that truly deserves to be called a future reader. Next, there is Kaiju number 2. From his form, this kaiju has a large and burly body and a wide mouth. From that mouth, a super deadly burst of electromagnetic energy can be released. Even in history, this burst of energy was able to destroy Sapporo when Kaiju number 2 first attacked. In addition to that burst of energy, Kaiju number 2 also has a very powerful physical strength. After being defeated and used as a weapon, Kaiju weapon number 2 was used by Isao Shinomiya. This kaiju weapon takes the form of a combat uniform with armored gloves on both hands. With a combination of martial techniques in the flow of defense forces, Isao was able to use his weapon very frighteningly. Even in a state where he is no longer in his prime, Isao is able to keep Kaiju number 8 and number 9 cornered. From his hand armor, Isao can unleash physical attacks that are on par with Kaiju. Even like Kaiju number 2, Isao can also release energy boosts that can extend his attack range. But the scariest thing is, Isao can also shoot super deadly bursts of electromagnetic energy. Can be seen when fighting Kaiju number 9. Isao's energy shots can perforate a tall building until it is destroyed. But unfortunately, Kaiju number 9 managed to defeat Isao and seize the power of his Kaiju number 2 weapon. Even now, Kaiju number 9 is also able to use all the power of Kaiju number 2. Furthermore, there is Kaiju number 3. Until the latest chapter, chapter 110 to be precise, this numbered Kaiju has never been shown, both the Kaiju form and the weapon user. So far, we only know that the Kaiju has been defeated and used as a weapon. In addition, we also know that the weapon user of Kaiju number 3 is located in Hokkaido Prefecture. Next, there is Kaiju number 4. From its appearance, this Kaiju is arguably the most unique because it is elongated like a centipede but has wings that resemble a dragonfly. So you can imagine that Kaiju number 4 is a numbered Kaiju that has high speed and the ability to fly. And this is very visible in the form of his Kaiju weapon. So, after being defeated and used as a weapon, Kaiju number 4's weapon was once used by Hikari Shinomiya. At that time, Hikari Shinomiya was known as a fast and elegant goddess of war. But in an incident, Kaiju masterminded by Kaiju number 6, Hikari Shinomiya, sacrificed herself and had to die on the battlefield. After that incident, Kaiju weapon number 4 had no owner, until finally the daughter, Kikoru, was chosen as its successor. From its form, Kaiju weapon number 4 is in the form of a scaly combat uniform with a gray color. With that weapon, the user is able to move very quickly and even defeat other numbered Kaiju weapons. And like Kaiju number 4, this Kaiju weapon can also issue wings on its back. With these wings, Kikoru was shown flying at high speed. Because she had a predecessor user, Kikoru also had a phenomenon where she saw a ghost figure. This phenomenon is said to occur because the weapon still stores the memory of the previous user. Every time she fights with Kaiju weapons, Kikoru can see the figure of her mother fighting in front of her. From here, Kikoru was taught how to move more effectively, until finally she was able to surpass her mother. Next, there is Kaiju number 5. Like number 3, this Kaiju has also never been shown in Kaiju form and Kaiju weapon form. However, we already know that Kaiju number 5 has been conquered and used as a weapon. Meanwhile, the current location of Kaiju number 5 weapon users is in Akita Prefecture. Next, there is Kaiju number 6, or what can be called the King of the Kaiju. So Kaiju number 6 is the mastermind behind the emergence of a series of Kaiju disasters 10 years ago. At that time, the defense forces had to lose 200 member soldiers and 3 captains, one of which was Hikari Shinomiya, and only then did Divisions 1 and 2 work together. And from the cooperation between Divisions 1 and 2, Kaiju number 6 was successfully conquered. But until now, this Kaiju is still remembered by Japanese citizens as a symbol of despair. Even so far, Kaiju number 6 has the second highest power level after Kaiju number 8, which is at 9.6. Besides having a giant form and a tail that supports its physical strength, Kaiju number 6 also has deadly superpowers. This Kaiju can control and create ice. In fact, because of this power, every time the Kaiju attacked, cold air and blizzards immediately enveloped the location. After being defeated and used as a weapon, Kaiju number 6 still shows its strength. Evidently, how after 10 years, no army has been able to use it as a Kaiju weapon. Eventually, after much experimentation and training, Rino Ichikawa managed to control it. Kaiju weapon number 6 is a combat uniform with 16 small cannons floating around it. By controlling those cannons, Rino was able to fire his ice attack with great power, evidenced where he was able to freeze many Kaiju at once in one shot. Besides that, Rino is also able to create ice from his limbs to land in high places. Even in defense, he is also able to install a shield from his uniform for protection. Like Kaiju number 3 and 5, this Kaiju has also not been shown the form of Kaiju or his weapon. Even when discussing Kaiju number 3 and number 5, we don't get the exact location of where this Kaiju weapon user is. But from the invisible part of the map, it's likely he's in the Western or Southern Division group. Next, there is Kaiju number 8. This numbered kaiju is the kaiju form of Kafka, the main character. So, after eating the mysterious kaiju, Kafka was able to change his form into kaiju. From there, he gained the power equivalent of a kaiju. Even today, kaiju number 8 still holds the record for the highest power level at 9.8. Kaiju number 8's form is humanoid with a height of up to 2 meters. However, when Kafka lost control and the kaiju power went berserk, Kaiju number 8 could also enlarge his body. In terms of ability, Kaiju number 8 clearly has very strong physical strength. With just his physical attacks, he can kill Kaiju up to Kaiju level 8.0 in one hit. As if to complement that physical strength, Kaiju number 8 also has agility and reflexes that are quite fast. This can be seen how when he faced Hoshina, he was able to avoid his slashes. In addition to his physical abilities, Kaiju number 8 also has several superpowers. First, he can change the shape of his limbs. Kafka used this to grow rocket thrusters on his legs and arms. That way, he could glide and deliver more powerful blows. In fact, he also grew fangs on his chest to protect his core organs. Secondly, Kaiju number 8 is also able to send energy discharges from his body. By strengthening his body with electromagnetic energy, Kaiju number 8 was able to amplify his physical attacks. Not only that, he can also release his energy with a shout to use it as a booster rocket. Third, Kaiju number 8 is also able to restore his body or regenerate. Although it drains stamina, this ability allows Kafka to grow parts of his body that are cut quickly. Even when he is out of control, Kaiju number 8 can also remove his core organs and immediately recover. Finally, Kaiju number 8 can also track the whereabouts of other kaiju that are nearby. He can even tell what kind of kaiju they are and how strong they are. Historically, the origins of Kaiju number 8 are still a mystery, but on one occasion, Kafka saw the ghost of an Edo period soldier. So it's possible that Kafka may have seen the figure of a previous Kaiju number 8 user. And if this is true, Kaiju number 8 may have existed since the Edo period. This is also what might have made Japan able to survive the kaiju attacks of that era, even with more primitive weapons. Next, there is Kaiju number 9. This is the kaiju who has so far become the main antagonist in the Kaiju number 8 series. At the beginning of his appearance, this kaiju targeted the defense forces by resurrecting the kaiju they conquered. He also disguised himself as a cleaner and sneaked into the battle area. There, he managed to injure some strong soldiers. Even so, Kaiju number 9's attacks were also thwarted several times by the defense forces, especially by Kaiju number 8. But since changing skin and evolving, Kaiju number 9 has become stronger and stronger until he was finally able to absorb Isao and his Kaiju number 2 weapon. According to Isao, Kaiju number 9 could be considered a virus because he was able to adapt and devise strategies to deal with the defense forces. For this reason, after becoming stronger, Kaiju number 9 is referred to as the new king of the kaiju. At the beginning of its appearance, Kaiju number 9 was recorded to have a power level of 8.5. But after changing skin, Deputy Isao said that his strength had greatly increased. From a physical point of view, Kaiju number 9 is very strong because he can injure Isao and Kaiju number 2's weapons with his fists. Even in defense, he can also withstand bullets from the defense force's firearms without being injured. Not only that, Kaiju also has a high level of speed and reflexes that allow him to dodge even bullets. But of all that, the most terrifying thing about Kaiju number 9 is that its superpowers vary greatly. First, Kaiju number 9 is able to change the shape of his body, from growing other members such as arms and wings, to being able to create a shot from his organs. So by creating a kind of balloon on his body and blowing it up, number 9 can send a very deadly shot. Even in one shot, he can perforate the bodies of soldiers even if they are wearing combat uniforms. Not only that, Kaiju number 9 can also grow his explosive balloon massively and bigger. And that's where mass and deadly shots can be released. Secondly, Kaiju number 9 can eat and absorb other creatures such as humans. That's when he can wear the form of the human he absorbed and get his memories. By absorbing even stronger humans, the kaiju is able to molt and evolve into a stronger form. Not only humans, Kaiju number 9 can also combine his body with other kaiju. For example, when he merges with an ant-type Yoju, he can create a new form of combination of the two kaiju. Even besides being able to absorb the body of Kaiju number 2, Kaiju number 9 can also grow Kaiju number 2's head and use its power. Thirdly, Kaiju number 9 was also able to double his body, and during the attack on Division 1, that Kaiju was able to make a diversionary attack with his two equally powerful copy bodies. Fourth, Kaiju number 9 has a fairly unique healing power. Not only can he restore his body, he can also resurrect Kaiju who have been killed and make them even stronger. Even so, number 9 has a limit to resurrecting these Kaiju, and none other than because this is very draining on his stamina. Fifth, Kaiju number 9 is also able to create other Kaiju that are even more powerful. By utilizing the location where the earth-cracking phenomenon occurs, number 9 can create Kaiju according to his wishes. In this way, he can create numbered Kaiju designed to be a counterweight to the main army of Divisions 1 and 3. Historically, the appearance of Kaiju number 9 is still a mystery like Kaiju number 8. But between the two, there are things that can also be connected. So we've seen the forms of humans who might be victims of Kaiju number 9's absorption, and among them are soldiers from the Edo period. So, has Kaiju number 9 also been roaming around since the Edo period like Kaiju number 8? The answer will probably be known someday. Meanwhile, from his goal, Kaiju number 9 claims that he intends to create a world where Kaiju rule. Therefore, he plans to take away everything that belongs to humans on Earth. Next is Kaiju number 10. This is the first numbered Kaiju created by Kaiju number 9 and is the prototype. At the beginning of his appearance, number 10 came by attacking the Division 3 headquarters. That's when he fought with Vice Captain Hoshina. Unlike the other Kaiju, Kaiju number 10 has a unique nature where he really enjoys fighting and strong opponents. So Kaiju number 10 is always looking for the strongest opponent to fight. That's why, after dueling with Hoshina until he was defeated by Division 3, the Kaiju still had a passion for fighting. He is even willing to become Hoshina's Kaiju weapon in order to join the fight with strong opponents, including the Kaiju. Thanks to Kaiju number 10, Hoshina got important information about the attack planned by Kaiju number 9. So even though he is his creation, number 10 has no sense of loyalty to number 9. In terms of physique and strength, number 10 has a humanoid form with a tail behind him. When fighting, he tends to rely on his super strong physical strength. Despite only having a power level of 8.3 when he first appeared, number 10 has a punch equivalent to a meteor. Even with just a flick of his finger, he can create a super powerful energy push that destroys the building in front of him. In defense, number 10 can also rely on its tough leather shell. Even when his arms and legs are cut off, he can recover quickly. But even more terrifying, Kai number 10 can also enlarge his body and reach a power level of 9.0. That's when he's able to grow eyes on his back and further strengthen his defensive aspects. Kaiju number 10 has the form of a combat uniform with a tail behind it. Unlike the other Kaiju weapons, number 10 still retains consciousness in the weapon. So he was able to communicate with Hoshina directly and even control part of the weapon, namely the tail. At first, with their opposing natures, Hoshina found it difficult to control the Kaiju weapon. But by challenging it, instead of giving orders, Hoshina was finally able to make Kaiju number 10 move according to his wishes. With the tail as an additional weapon, Hoshina's short-range attacks became even more deadly. Even after realizing that he was also a fighting maniac like Kaiju number 10, Hoshina managed to unleash maximum power to reach 100% on his Kaiju weapon. That was also when Hoshina used his three-sword technique. Next, we move on to Kaiju number 11. Like before, this Kaiju is also a numbered Kaiju created by Kaiju number 9. He was one of the 5 numbered Kaiju sent to Tokyo in a massive invasion. From his form, Kaiju number 11 has a humanoid body shape with a fish head. At the beginning of his appearance, he had invited a strange phenomenon where the fish on a beach were sucked in by him. In terms of strength, Kaiju number 11 has a power level of 9.0 and was designed by number 9 to counter Narumi. Because of this, he also has memories of Isao and very strong physical strength. With these memories, number 11 is able to read Narumi's techniques and send effective counterattacks. But the most terrifying thing about Kaiju number 11 is his waterbending power. So, in addition to countering Narumi's Kaiju number 1 weapon, number 11 has the power to control water. That way he can unleash attacks that cannot be predicted. because Narumi can only read the movements of living things, from shooting him, making him a shield, to a trap. Kaiju number 11's water power was a frightening figure for Narumi. Even so, Kaiju number 11 ended up defeated by Narumi after he evolved the power of his Kaiju weapon, by entering a mode that is very taxing on his brain. Narumi can predict all particles including water from number 11. As a result, he also managed to counter his attacks. Next, there is Kaiju number 12. This Kaiju is also one of the 5 numbered Kaiju sent to Tokyo in a massive invasion. So he is the creation of Kaiju number 9 and is the perfect version of Kaiju number 10. From his physical form, number 12 has a humanoid shape and tail like Kaiju number 10. However, he has 2 horns and looks more muscular. While in terms of strength, Kaiju number 12 is like a better version of number 10. With a power level of 9.0, the Kaiju has the physical strength and speed to suppress Hoshina. As a Kaiju made as a counter to Hoshina, he also fights using a sword by turning his hand into a sword. Plus his physical advantages, number 12 is the first mini-sized Kaiju who can outperform Hoshina in short-range combat. Even more interesting, he also has a very fast adaptation power. When Hoshina used his one-sword technique, he had managed to outmaneuver the Kaiju. But with his adaptability, number 12 was able to mimic Hoshina's one-sword technique and push him back. That's when Hoshina almost gave up because he seemed to have run out of ways. But with the 3-sword technique that makes an explosion and the Kaiju's weapon release that reaches 100%, Hoshina finally managed to defeat Kaiju number 12. Even so, because of his persistence in fighting, the Kaiju made Hoshina amazed and praised him. Next, there is Kaiju number 13. Just like before, this Kaiju is also one of the 5 numbered Kaiju sent to Tokyo. And at that time, Kaiju managed to beat up 2 1st Division platoon leaders, namely Tachibana and Shinonome. And then finally Kafka, who was previously assigned to the rear guard, was forced to intervene against him. Physically, Kaiju number 13 has a humanoid form with a muscular body. In order to support his physical strength, the Kaiju can also increase the muscle mass in his organs. So when fighting, number 13 can rely on his speed and strength. By increasing the muscle mass in his legs, he can move very quickly. Meanwhile, his body and hands are also so strong that they can withstand machine gun fire and deliver devastating blows. When dealing with Kaiju number 8, number 13 can also increase his body size. That's when his power level increases from 9.0 to 9.2. Even so, this Kaiju was ultimately defeated by Kafka. Despite attacking in his giant mode, Kaiju number 13's punch was able to be blocked by Kaiju number 8, and in one counterpunch, Kafka also managed to knock Kaiju number 13 out until his core organs were damaged. Furthermore, there is Kaiju number 14. This Kaiju is also one of the 5 numbered Kaiju sent in the invasion of Tokyo. He was the Kaiju created by Kaiju number 9 to counter Mina. Still having the same power level of 9.0, Kaiju number 14 does not have a humanoid form like his other siblings. With a 4-faced black monolith form, this Kaiju also has the ability to fly in the air. From its 4 faces, Kaiju number 14 can send energy shots. To counter Mina's rifle and railgun, Kaiju number 14 can teleport short distances. As a result, he was able to continue dodging until he managed to shoot at various buildings and shelters. In fact, besides being able to teleport, this Kaiju also has a protective shield. So even though it was successfully shot at, number 14 still had the ability to survive. Until finally, Mina, with the help of Bako, managed to advance closer and find an effective shooting point. After getting the teleportation route from the operators, Mina was able to guess the direction of his displacement and sent a shot that hit his core organs. Finally, there is Kaiju number 15. Just like the previous 4, this Kaiju is also the creation of Kaiju number 9. He was the numbered Kaiju sent in the invasion of Tokyo to face Kikoru Shinomiya. In fact, to counter Kikoru's power, this Kaiju was created from Isao's memory of his daughter. So, Kaiju number 15 looks up to number 9 like her own father. Because of this, at the beginning of her birth, number 15 desperately wanted to be loved by that father figure, so she would obey all his orders. Formed as a Kaiju, number 15 has a humanoid form that resembles a woman with a large brain-shaped head. But just like her father, number 15 also has the ability to transform into a human form that closely resembles Kikoru. With a power level of 9.0, Kaiju number 15 has a fairly powerful physical strength. With just her physical attacks, she can destroy buildings and the ground around her. Even in Kaiju form, she is also able to float in the air and send massive energy shots. In terms of speed, Kaiju number 15 is also able to rival Kikoru and Kaiju weapon number 4. In fact, the Kaiju weapon is called the fastest among other numbered Kaiju weapons. Besides attacking from her physical body, Kaiju number 15 also has a very effective long-range attack weapon. First, she can absorb and collect debris to make it a weapon. From there, she can form a giant axe that resembles Kikoru's weapon and throw it. Secondly, Kaiju number 15 can also send energy shots from her head. So, with the combination of short and long attacks, she was a frightening figure for Kikoru. But of all these, the most terrifying thing about Kaiju number 15 is its power of psychological manipulation. By releasing an energy network and capturing its target, number 15 can send a mental attack on the target. With its manipulation, the target will be made unable to fight anymore. Even so, in the end, Kikoru also managed to defeat Kaiju number 15. Besides being able to develop rapidly in the middle of the battle, Kikoru also managed to get up after being hit by a mental attack from the Kaiju. But after learning that his opponent only wanted to be loved by his father figure, Kaiju number 9. Kikoru had shown sympathy. She even said that she would beat Kaiju number 9. And that's the explanation of all the numbered Kaiju and their Kaiju weapons. Keep in mind, this numbering system only applies after the power level detection device on Kaiju is used. So long before, there may also be Kaiju whose strength is similar but not included in this list of 15. So far, there are still some Kaiju that have not been shown. In fact, there is also the possibility that these newly defeated Kaiju can one day be used as weapons. So this is where I believe that the story of Kaiju number 8 is still very far away. And in your opinion, among the Kaiju, which number is the most powerful? Like and subscribe, iits'Nime. See you in the next episode.